John had been a rancher for most of his life, living alone on the outskirts of town. His days were spent working the land, tending to his cattle, and making sure his ranch ran smoothly. He was a man of few words, but everyone in town knew him as someone who could be counted on. He didn't care much for company, preferring the quiet of the wide-open land. But today was different. He had heard some whispers around town, the kind of whispers that made him uneasy. Some of the wealthier landowners, who often thought they could have a laugh at other people's expense, were planning a cruel prank. They had arranged to send a young Chinese girl to clean John's barn. The joke, they thought, would be hilarious. The girl would be humiliated by the amount of work and the way she would be treated. It was meant to be a cruel joke, one that they thought would entertain them as they watched from a distance. John didn't know the details at first, but he overheard it at the local store. He heard one of the landowners laugh and say, "We'll send her to John's place to clean out that barn. It'll be hilarious to watch her struggle." The thought of someone being used for amusement angered John. He wasn't the kind of man who stood by and allowed others to be made fun of, especially not in such a heartless way. Later that day, the girl May arrived at John's ranch. John had been working on a fence, his back to the gate, when he heard the sound of hooves approaching. He turned around to see a young girl, no older than 17, standing nervously at the edge of the property. Her clothes were simple, and she seemed out of place in the rough surroundings of the ranch. Her face was pale, her eyes uncertain, as if she wasn't sure if she had arrived in the right place. John wiped his hands on his pants and walked toward her. She didn't look like the type to be here by choice. "You must be the one they sent," John said, his voice calm but firm. May nodded, her eyes cast down. "I'm here to clean the barn," she said softly, as if saying it out loud might make the situation feel more real. John studied her for a moment. He could tell she was embarrassed, possibly even scared. The cruel prank was already having its effect, but John wasn't about to let it go any further. He wasn't about to let this girl be humiliated just because someone thought it was funny. "The barn's a big place," John said, his tone gentle. "It'll take a lot of work. It's not a job for one person, especially if you don't know the place well." He paused, looking at her, trying to figure out what was going through her mind. "But I don't mind giving you a hand. No need to do it alone." May looked up at him in surprise. She hadn't expected kindness from anyone, certainly not from someone like John, a man who looked tough as nails. She had been expecting to be sent away in disgrace once the task was done. Instead, she was now being offered help. "I can do it," May said, almost as if she were convincing herself. "I can manage," John shook his head. "No one's expected to do this kind of work by themselves. We'll tackle it together." He led May to the barn, and the two of them started the task of cleaning out the space. John showed May how to handle the tools, how to move the hay, and how to clean the stalls. At first, she was slow and unsure, but John's steady presence gave her confidence. She soon learned how to carry the buckets, how to organize the hay bales, and even how to calm the animals. As the hours passed, May began to relax. She was no longer thinking about the cruel prank that had brought her here. Instead, she was focused on the task at hand, working alongside John, whose quiet nature was easy to be around. She started to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of accomplishment. John didn't rush her. He didn't make her feel like she was beneath him, or that she had to prove anything. He simply worked beside her, teaching her what she needed to know. He wasn't treating her like a joke. He wasn't looking down on her. Instead, he was showing her respect. As they worked, May found herself telling John about her life. She had come to America hoping for a better future, but it hadn't been easy. She had been treated poorly, had struggled to find work, and had faced prejudice simply because of where she came from. It had been hard, and at times she felt as if she didn't belong anywhere. But as John listened to her, he didn't judge her. He just listened. He didn't interrupt, and he didn't make her feel like an outsider. For the first time in a long while, May felt heard. The day passed quickly. By the time the sun started to set, the barn was spotless. John stepped back and looked at the work they had done. "We've made good progress," he said with a satisfied nod. May stood beside him, her hands tired but her heart lighter than it had been all day. She had expected to be sent away once the barn was clean, maybe even be laughed at for how hard she worked. But instead, John had treated her with respect. He had refused to let her be part of the joke. He had shown her kindness and had refused to let her go. May felt a strange warmth in her chest. Maybe it wasn't too late for her to have a place in this world after all. She wasn't just the butt of a cruel joke anymore. She was someone who had earned her way, someone who had done honest work with dignity. As they finished their work, the landowners arrived, expecting to see a disgraced May, ready to mock her. But when they saw her standing tall next to John, wiping the sweat from her forehead, they were taken aback. "You're done already?" one of them asked, surprised that May hadn't failed the task. John stepped forward, his face calm but resolute. "She's not leaving," he said. "Not until the work is done. And she's done more than her share." The landowners were furious, but John wasn't concerned with their opinions. May wasn't their joke. She was a person who had been given a chance. And John was determined to make sure she had every opportunity to succeed. He wouldn't let anyone take that away from her. May, who had been so unsure of herself when she first arrived, now stood confidently. She was no longer just a joke. She was more than that, and John had given her the chance to see that. The next few days passed quietly, but for May, everything had changed. She woke up early every morning with a sense of purpose, her hands eager to get to work. It felt different now. The ranch wasn't just a place where she was sent to clean. It had become her refuge. John had shown her respect, something she hadn't felt in a long time. The work was hard, but it was satisfying, and with each task, May found herself becoming more skilled, more confident. John, too, noticed the change in May. He had seen her start as a shy, nervous girl, unsure of her place in the world. Now she moved with more assurance, taking on each task without hesitation. Her hands were calloused from working, but her spirit had grown stronger. John often caught her humming quietly as she worked, something he hadn't heard her do in the beginning. It was a small thing, but to John it meant everything. He had given her a chance, but it was her own strength and determination that had brought her this far. One afternoon, as they were repairing a fence near the edge of the property, John saw May working harder than he'd ever seen her. She was carrying heavy wood planks to the site, her face set with determination. Her back was sore and her hands were trembling, but she didn't stop. John walked over to her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to do all of this on your own," he said, his voice gentle but firm. May looked up at him, a slight smile crossing her face. "I can do it," she said, her voice steady. "I'm not afraid of hard work anymore." John smiled back, proud of the woman May had become. "You've come a long way," he said quietly. "But don't wear yourself out. I don't want you to push too hard." May shook her head. "I'm okay. I'm just thankful to be here. I want to prove that I can do this." And prove she did. As the days turned into weeks, May's place on the ranch became more secure. John continued to teach her new skills, from tending to the cattle to fixing small repairs around the property. She was no longer just cleaning the barn. She was becoming a vital part of the ranch. One evening, after a long day's work, May sat outside the small ranch house, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. John joined her, sitting down beside her in the quiet of the evening. "I never thought I'd end up here," May said softly, staring out at the vast open land. "When I first came to America, I thought it would be easy. I thought things would be better. But it wasn't what I expected. I was lost for so long, not knowing where I belonged." John nodded, understanding her words more than she realized. "Sometimes life doesn't turn out the way we plan," he said, his voice low and thoughtful. "But we keep going, one step at a time. That's how you get to where you need to be." May looked at him, her eyes reflecting the fading light of the sun. "I never thought I'd find a place like this. A place where I wasn't just seen as someone to laugh at or use. You've made me feel like I'm more than that. You've given me a chance to prove myself." John felt a lump form in his throat. He wasn't used to talking about his feelings, but seeing the difference in May, seeing her grow into someone who believed in herself, made him realize just how much he had come to care for her. She wasn't just a worker. She was someone who had earned her place beside him, someone who had found her strength. The quiet between them stretched on for a few moments before John spoke again. "You've earned more than a place on this ranch," he said, his voice steady. "You've earned respect. And I'm proud of the work you've done." May smiled, her heart full of gratitude. "Thank you, John. I don't think I could have done this without you." Just then, the sound of horses approaching broke the stillness. John's expression hardened for a moment, and he stood up to greet the riders. May looked up, wondering who it was. As the riders drew closer, she recognized them. the landowners who had orchestrated the cruel joke in the first place. John didn't wait for them to speak. He walked straight toward them, his face serious. "What can I do for you?" he asked, his tone not welcoming but neutral. One of the landowners, a man with a smug expression, spoke first. "We were just passing by and thought we'd see how your cleaning girl is doing." He glanced at May, his eyes full of mockery. "Still cleaning that barn, I assume?" John's eyes narrowed. "She's not cleaning the barn anymore. She's part of the ranch now. She's earned her place here." The landowner laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the quiet air. "Earned her place, huh? Don't you think she's a little out of her league?" John didn't flinch. "She's doing just fine. Better than most people I know. And I won't have you mocking her." The landowner's smile faded, but he didn't argue. "We were just checking in," he said dismissively. "But I see we're wasting our time." With a final glance at May, the riders turned and left, their laughter trailing behind them. May watched them go, her heart pounding. She had expected the same mocking tone they had used when they first sent her to John's ranch, but instead, she had been met with something different. John's fierce protection. It meant more to her than words could express. John turned back to May, his expression softening. "Don't mind them," he said. "They think they can get away with anything. But I've shown them that I'm not a joke." May finished for him, a smile playing on her lips. "Thanks to you." John nodded, and for a brief moment the two of them stood there watching the sun sink lower in the sky. The day was winding down, but the work wasn't finished yet. John knew there was still much to do, but in that quiet moment he realized that something bigger than hard work had been accomplished. May had found her place not just on the ranch but in the world. She had proven her strength, and John had given her the chance to do it. And in return, May had shown John that even in the darkest of times kindness could change everything.